What up, YouTube? I'm Raz. Welcome to my build guide for how I built the Blood Sacrament Ascendant. Last league, I was able to farm multiple mirrors, cleared all content, tier 17s and Ubers with a medium investment, and then I managed to push it to the moon with a big investment. Before I get started, subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and you can follow me on Twitch at Raz311. What you should expect from this guide. First, some disclaimers. I am by no means the best build maker. I've only been playing heavily for the last 2 leagues, but I was able to make a build relatively my own and push it into all the content. I'm not super big on min-maxing to the moon. That's really not my style, and I'm not going to make guides that push that unless it specifically says that. If you follow this guide, even to the low investment stuff, you should still be able to do all the aspirational content like Ubers and tier 17s. But the build does have nearly limitless scaling for damage and survivability. Well, life anyway. But we'll get to that soon enough. But the scaling is pretty straightforward. You're mostly just scaling life and crit multiplier and pride effect. We'll get into that as well. So this is a softcore build. I want to say it's a glass cannon build, but I wouldn't say it's not. I would say it's more like a bulletproof glass cannon, because you will die sometimes to random stuff, but you can tank an Uber Shaper Slam. So it's more like you have to be doing stupid stuff or like get hit at exactly the right moment in order to die. And it doesn't happen that often, so it's not too much to worry about. You might be asking, well, what is Blood Sacrament and how does it work? Well, basically, it's originally a channeled skill. So if we take out some gems, the skill comes from the wand from Ultimatum called Relic of the Pact. And normally the skill would look like this. You would channel your life with ticks, and even that's too fast because of this ring. Take it off. So you would channel your life into a big explosion, and then when you release, it does damage in the area increased by how much life you have reserved. So it says it deals a flat amount of damage, 602 to 918 in my case, just with my gear, and it does 80% more damage per 10 life you reserve with a skill. So I have 28k right now, and it's probably about 210 million DPS at the moment, just on a boss. So just to be clear, this is not a league start build. You cannot league start this character because the wand comes from Ultimatum, and the jewel you need for the build comes from Searing Exarch. If this is a second character or you have a good chunk of currency, you can pick up the uniques that you need, which will be 3 of them. And you can start it at level 38 and level completely through the campaign, and it is a super breeze because this build absolutely slaps. So the items you need to start the build, if you're going to start it at level 38 as your second character and you have a decent amount of currency, you don't need hundreds of divs, but you're going to need at least like 20 or so under your belt. Maybe less, depends on how much the stuff is. Usually it's pretty cheap. I checked, most of it's like chaos. A lot of the small stuff, these are usually pretty cheap because not a lot of people use them. You don't have to get perfect rolls, obviously, but these are the 3 items that you'll need. So you'll have the wand, which is usable at level 30, the ring, which is usable at level 38, and the jewel, which you can use at level 1, as long as you have a, well, as soon as you unlock a jewel socket anyway. And then these gems are required in order to make the skill function. Once we have the gems in and the jewel in, even with 3,000 life, you'll still be able to clear maps pretty easily. So how it works in the beginning is you're going to get the skill from the wand, and then you're going to use these gems that have very expensive reservation multipliers: life tap, second wind, and brutality. And then you're going to use this ring, which gives you 80% reduced reservation efficiency. So now instead of channeling the skill, the first tick of the channel will immediately proc the spell at basically its maximum strength. And then because you have second wind, the skill does have a short cooldown, which we get down to about 0.3 seconds. But because we have second wind, we get 2 casts of it. And it basically cools down as soon as you cast it. It's very hard to run it out of charges. Alright, so let's pull up the POV so you can get an idea how this stuff works. So here's the POB for the swap. Shows you at level 38, you only need these 3 items. You can pick up items off the ground, just get some resists and stuff, get your flasks, whatever you want, and level through the campaign the way you normally would. You can level however you want as well. Take a look at note here. It specifies as a softcore build and is not a league start. I do have a suggested league start that I'm going to play this league, but you can do whatever you want. Once you get to level 38, you respec out of whatever you did, and you put on those 3 uniques along with the gems that go into the wand. For your labs, just do them as soon as you can. You can do them early. You're going to be super strong. Just don't stand in traps and cast the ability because you will die. This is the early game tree. You're basically just going to start at the fizz nodes, work your way through these life nodes, grab Iron Will, grab a jewel slot for the dissolution of the flesh, and then basically it just grabs a bunch of life nodes. The dissolution of the flesh says removes all energy shield, and life that would be lost by taking damage is instead reserved until you take no damage for 2 seconds. And then it gives you % more life between 20 and 30. So basically what's going on is the way it'll interact with this build is you'll be reserving your life down to very low. But then even if you get hit, it's just going to reserve your life instead. It makes no difference if your life is low. You could be at 1 life and get hit, and it will just do life reservation. At a certain point, if you take a certain amount of damage, which is over 16% of your life, you won't be able to cast the ability anymore. But you just flame dash out, wait 2 seconds, and then you can go back and blast again. Once you get through level 38, you level through the campaign. There is a leveling tree in here. It shows you some of the other things to take on the way to maps. And then towards the end of the campaign, you'll be somewhere around here. And when you get to early maps and you have a low investment, you have a tree like this. And then you get into early maps. You're just going to be using a couple of other legendaries. I'm sorry, uniques. We have the Entropic Devastation, which will allow your spells to stack impales, which will do 10% of the damage of your last spell every time you stack another impale. Greatly increases your damage. And then at level 68, you'll be able to equip the Wrathpith Globe, which will give you 5% increased crit chance for spells per 100 max life, and then 5% increased spell damage per 100 max life. So this shield just scales absolutely out of control. It also has 10% maximum life on it. It does say sacrifice 10% of your life whenever you use or trigger a spell skill, but that is completely irrelevant to us because our life total is irrelevant. We cast with reservation and we take damage with reservation. Basically, for the rare items, you're just going to be using them to fill out your resistances early. And then around level 48, you can equip the Untouched Soul, which will give you plus 48 maximum life for each empty red socket on any equipped item. So if you look at it in game, on my main character, you can see we have 18 unsocketed red sockets. And then you're going to get 48 life for each of those. That's pretty much it for the uniques, other than this replica Witchfire Brew Flask, which will cast a vulnerability curse aura whenever you use it. It also creates a smoke cloud to give you some more evasion, and basically just going to increase the damage that enemies take by a pretty significant margin. And then when you get all these jewel sockets early, you're just going to want to, if you don't have a lot of currency, but you have a little bit, you're just going to want to pick up 2 or 3 statted yellow jewels that have max life, crit strike multi, or any could be like max life, crit strike multi, physical damage, or resistances that you need. So you just want to sort out your resists. The other thing I would recommend is, if you don't have a mage blood, to get yourself a searching eye jewel, an abyss jewel that gives you 50% chance to avoid being shocked, or somewhere around there, because we're going to run a flask that gives you 55% chance to avoid being shocked. So this way, once you put on your Storm Shroud jewel on the next tier, it'll make you immune to all ailments. Well, elemental ailments anyway. Once you get into mid-maps and you have a little more currency, what we're going to do is we're going to add the Tides of Time into the build. And this will allow us to use it with 3 utility flash charges. You could use less, but 3 is the best. And if you have some currency, this will be fine. And what we're doing is we're combining that with the Pathfinder ascendancy. So once you get here at the end, it'll give you flask gain 3 charges every 3 seconds. So now your utility flasks, you're going to be gaining 6 charges every 3 seconds. And if you roll increased, what's it called? Let's see. Increased charge recovery on them, then they'll be getting even more. So with these, with 50%, if you can get 50%ers, it's like 9 charges every second, or every 3 seconds. So every 9 seconds, it just goes full. So if you're killing monsters, you're just going to have 100% flask uptime pretty much. And then with that, you can get immunity to bleeding, immunity to shock, immunity to poison, and some extra move speed. And once we're in here, we'll be picking up the Unnatural Instinct to pick up a lot of free nodes. You pick up a Parandus Pact. It'll probably be named something else this league, but it'll be this jewel that gives you the cast res as long as it's still in the game. And then a Storm Shroud. These should all be relatively cheap depending on the Parandus Pact, but if it's not, you can just swap out a flask. Maybe swap out the silver flask for a chaos resist flask. And then get some chaos resist on a couple of the other rares you have open. So you're just basically capping your resists, and then you're going to still have these jewels. If you can afford it, you can swap to an Adorned here, but it's not necessary. I mean, even with, you know, this mid-tier stuff, you're still pulling like 8 million DPS, which is a lot for this early in the game. And then once we get a little later into the build, you get some more skill points. We're not really going to add any more uniques other than jewels. So here's when we're going to put our Adorned on. If we have the currency for the higher investment, it's not necessary, but you can see it does push up the DPS of the build a significant amount. I think we went from 8 million DPS to 17 million DPS. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to anoint the Untouched Soul with Whispers of Doom, which is 3 gold, I'm pretty sure. 3 gold oils. And then everything else is still the same. You can craft up your Vermilion Ring. You're going to pick up the Adorned. We're going to get some Corrupted Jewels. The way I like to do it was get like bleed reduced duration so that I'm bleed immune. Get like corrupted blood immunity on another jewel. And then we're just stacking life and crit strike multi. The Adorned breakpoint for life is 86 at 7%. You won't get another increase until exactly 100. So anything above 86 is a waste. And then there's a pretty big gap below that. But you don't need a maxed out Adorned. It can be, you know, somewhere in the 60s. But if you wanted to do its best and at its cheapest, most efficient price-wise will probably be 86. But then after that, you want to get a 100. So we're getting corrupted versions of these jewels that have crit strike multi and max life. You shouldn't need anything else as far as resists go. You should have it on your gear, but if you have any you need to shore up, you can get it on these jewels as well. And we're adding 1 cluster jewel. You can craft them yourself on the bench, rolling fizz mods. You're just trying to basically get max life and those 2 notables, which are Force Multiplier and Iron Breaker. These are obviously not min-maxed out of their mind or anything, but you can make them as good as you want. We're also going to be adding the Sublime Vision to the build. It should be available by the time you're getting this far into your second character, or if this is mid-league, it'll just allow your enemies you kill while you have Pride active to make them have a 25% chance to explode, dealing 1/10 of their max life as fizz damage. But you can only use Pride, so that's what we're doing. All right, and then here, once you hit level 100 and you're going crazy with your investments, you make your Adorned Jewels, you know, Corrupted, Hinder Immunity, Bleed Immunities. You're getting Poison Immunity on flasks, Curse Immunity on flasks, your Move Speed, your Shock Immunity, your Mage Blood. You can start looking into Double Corrupts for life, stuff like that. We're going to swap to the Apostate, which is a unique from Uber Synthesis boss. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. But it basically gives you gain maximum life instead of maximum energy shield from equipped armor items. So we'll be switching to all energy shield bases, and you will just stack as much energy shield as you can. The new bases should give you a good chunk of energy shield. So you're just going to stack life, strength, energy shield, and whatever resists you might need. Although at this point, with the Bismuth Flask, you shouldn't really need any more resists. You should be capped across the board. Although you may need to put, you can see it here in the POB, there's like 1% off lightning and 1% off chaos. If you don't pick those up on your rare gear, you can just use tattoos to fill that out. I think they're 3% each. That makes it pretty easy. The Watcher's Eye that I like to run for bosses is 12% chance to deal double damage while using Pride, and impales you inflict lasts 2 additional hits while using Pride. This will not be cheap. There's also another Pride modifier you can get that gives you, I think it's between 30 and 50% increased physical damage. This might be a little expensive this league since so many people are going melee and there's a lot of impales running around. So at this point, this isn't even as far as you can push it. This league, I'm going to try to push it to like 1 billion DPS. You can run Vol Righteous Fire, which is 40% more magic damage for boss fights. And you can get voices and then socket even more Adorned Jewels in them. Your double corrupts, you know, we got global crit, hinder immunity, increased damage, poison duration reduction, corrupted blood immunity, increased area of effect on the wand, max life, area damage reduction on the shield, increased damage, reduced damage taken, max life on the gloves, strength and pride effect. I was really looking for a max life pride effect on the Mage Blood, but I wasn't able to get it. I believe the amulet, we can get strength and pride effect aura as well. And then for the ring, you're going to want to craft it with an essence to add global crit multi and try to get as high as max life as you can, and strength and damage. There's really no other mods that work, so you can put whatever other prefix and suffix you want, because nothing else will fill it out at all. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or come by my Twitch. It's Razzed311, Razzed 311, just like my YouTube. Leave a comment, drop a like, subscribe for the next video. I'm going to try to push this build into the 1 billion DPS mark, and we'll see how it goes, see how much life I can get, that kind of stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and have a good one. Also, the POB will be linked in the description. Be sure to read the notes.